A simple withdrawal, or the moment a system failed its own architect. When an older black man in plain clothes walks into a bank he helped build from the ground up, the branch manager thinks he's just another retiree making a fuss. What he doesn't know, the man he's dismissing is the president of the entire institution. And in the next 30 minutes, that manager's illusion of control will shatter. This is a story of quiet power, reckless bias, and the kind of reckoning that doesn't need a raised voice, just the truth, revealed in silence. Stick around. This moment changed everything. He didn't wear a badge, a title, or even a tailored coat that morning. Just a navy button-down, loose khakis, and a weathered leather wallet tucked in one calloused hand. Isaiah Thornton had spent 4 decades in banking. He'd survived mergers, boardroom politics, economic collapse, and the quiet rot of internal discrimination. From intern to president, his rise wasn't loud, it was deliberate, steady, earned. But today wasn't about reminding anyone of that. Today, he simply wanted to see if the bank he'd poured his life into still remembered its core values. The Speedway branch in Tucson was one of the newer additions to their growing presence in the Southwest. Sleek floors, frosted windows, quiet music humming under fluorescent light. Inside, the mood was casual. Customers scrolled through phones, filled out forms, waited for their numbers to flash. Isaiah took his place in line behind a young man in a landscaping uniform. No one noticed him. That was the point. When it was his turn, he approached the counter calmly. "Good morning," he said, offering a small smile to the young teller named Madison. "I'd like to make a withdrawal from my personal account." She nodded, professional and polite. "Of course, sir. I'll need your ID and account number." He handed both over. Before Madison could even begin typing, a figure appeared beside her. Mid-50s, too-tight tie, square jaw, branch manager Derek Shaw. His smile was wide, but not kind. It was the smile of someone who already assumed he knew everything he needed to. "Sorry," Derek cut in. "We can't process that withdrawal today." Isaiah tilted his head slightly. "Is there an issue with my account?" Derek chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "We've had problems, sir. Fraud. People pretending to be someone they're not. You understand. Large withdrawals make us cautious." "I see," Isaiah said slowly. "Would you like additional verification?" "No need," Derek replied, arms folding. "Honestly, this ID doesn't even look like you." Madison froze. The screen in front of her still blank. Derek hadn't even looked at the system. Isaiah's voice remained steady. "You haven't checked the account yet, have you?" Derek shrugged. "I don't need to. I know when something feels off." And there it was. It wasn't the rejection that stung, it was the assumption. The automatic decision that the man standing before him couldn't possibly be someone of value, of ownership, of leadership. Isaiah's face stayed neutral, but inside, something shifted. Something familiar. He'd seen it before, in loan meetings where his voice had been sidelined, in deals where his title was forgotten until someone Googled his name. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was his turf. "Derek," he said evenly, "I suggest you check the system." But the manager was already stepping away, muttering something about calls to return. Isaiah didn't call after him. He didn't raise his voice. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and waited. Not for revenge. For truth to speak, in its own quiet, inevitable way. The room had changed, but not because of anything loud. It was the stillness. The unnatural hush. The moment when everyone pretends not to listen, but their ears betray them. Derek had disappeared into his glass-walled office, phone to his ear, still convinced he had the upper hand. Madison stared at the ID in her hand, her expression torn between protocol and instinct. Isaiah hadn't moved from the counter. "Madison," he said softly, voice almost too quiet to carry, "can you read the name on that ID for me?" She glanced down, fingers trembling slightly. "Isaiah Thornton. And what happens if you type that into the account system?" She hesitated, just long enough for everyone in the lobby to feel the weight of it, then slowly began to type. Her breath caught when the profile appeared. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted in surprise. Executive account. Isaiah Thornton. President. She stopped, as if saying more would summon something irreversible. You didn't know I was coming, Isaiah said gently. I didn't want anyone to. I wanted to see how things really work here. Now that you've verified the information, do you need anything else from me? Madison's voice was almost a whisper. No, sir. I'm sorry. But before she could proceed, Derek's office door swung open again. Clipboard in hand, jaw tight. Still clinging to a performance he thought he controlled. Is there still an issue? He asked, eyes darting from Madison to Isaiah. No, Isaiah replied calmly. She's confirmed the account. Derek rolled his eyes. Look, sir, you can't just show up here claiming to be someone important, dressed like you're heading to the grocery store and expecting us to roll out the red carpet. The insult hit like a slap, but Isaiah didn't flinch. He stared at the man as one might stare at a broken compass, useless for navigation, dangerous in a storm. I didn't realize access to my own money required a dress code, he replied. This isn't about clothes, it's about protocol, Derek snapped. No, Isaiah said, still calm. Protocol means verifying identity before refusing service. It means treating people with dignity, not suspicion. What you followed wasn't protocol. It was assumption. Derek turned, gesturing broadly. Can someone please escort this man out before he causes a scene? But no one moved. Madison didn't blink. Another teller, a man in his 30s named Andre, stood halfway from his seat, but only stared. Even the customers had stopped pretending, phones down, pens still, breath held. Then someone in the back muttered just loud enough to break the silence. Isaiah Thornton. Didn't he give that keynote in Phoenix last year? Derek froze. Isaiah stepped forward, still not raising his voice, but each word landing like stone on glass. You judged me the second I walked in. You didn't ask. You didn't check. You decided. Derek opened his mouth again. But Isaiah cut him off, steady and final. This conversation is over. And with that, he made a call, not to shout, not to punish, but to let the next moment unfold exactly as it needed to. One call. And everything Derek thought he knew about control began to slip through his fingers. Isaiah didn't move far. He stood a few steps back from the counter, phone still in hand, his eyes steady on the glass door of Derek's office like a general surveying a battlefield he didn't ask for but knew how to command. There were no outbursts. No threats. Just silence, a thick, deliberate silence that forced everyone to stay still and listen. The call connected. Yes, this is Isaiah. Patch me through to HR, now. Speedway Branch, Tucson. He didn't wait for a confirmation. He ended the call. Nothing else was needed. Inside his office, Derek continued to pace, still pretending to take phone calls, still not understanding that he wasn't in control anymore. He glanced at Isaiah through the glass, offered a dismissive shake of the head, as if this was all some misunderstanding that would blow over. But it wouldn't. The atmosphere inside the bank tightened. Staff exchanged glances but said nothing. One elderly woman leaned on her cane and whispered, "Sweetheart, you okay? That man's out of line." Isaiah offered her a gentle nod. "I'm handling it." A moment later, his phone rang again. "Isaiah, it's Monique from HR. The regional VP is looped in. We're en route. 3 minutes." He hung up. Slowly, calmly. Across the lobby, Madison looked like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Isaiah walked back toward her. "You did your job," he told her. "You followed what you were trained to do. What matters is how you respond when something feels wrong." She nodded, her voice low. "I didn't know what to do. He was so sure." "That's how it works," Isaiah replied. "They act sure so no one questions them." The click of Derek's office door interrupted them. He stepped out, shoulders squared, clipboard still in hand like a badge of authority. But there was something different in his walk now, hesitation, cracks forming beneath the surface of his confidence. He approached Isaiah. "You know," he began, voice artificially composed, "if you really are who you say you are, there are better ways to handle this. A phone call, an appointment. Isaiah's voice turned steel. I didn't have to set anything up. You did that all on your own. Derek blinked, unsure if it was a threat or a reprimand. Maybe both. Then the branch phone rang. Andre picked it up, his eyes darting toward Derek. It's for you. Derek took the phone slowly, like it might burn him. Stephen Aldrich speaking. Yes, she's still here. Understood. He hung up and turned to face the lobby. Mr. Thornton, he said, this time with a tremor in his voice, may I speak with you in private? Isaiah didn't even look at him. You had your moment. That silence returned. But it wasn't confusion anymore. It was realization. Recognition. The understanding that something irreversible had just begun. And for the first time since Isaiah had walked in, Derek wasn't the one everyone was watching. Isaiah was. And now, everyone could see exactly who held the real authority in the room. The double doors swung open. Two figures stepped inside the branch. One was Monique, HR director, her walk crisp, gaze cutting. The other, towering in stature and reputation, was Roland Pierce, the bank's regional VP. His dark suit looked like it had never known a wrinkle, his presence like gravity. The air shifted again, this time with certainty. This was no longer a misunderstanding. This was a reckoning. They didn't look around. They walked straight to Isaiah. Isaiah, Roland said, voice quiet but undeniable. We got here as fast as we could. Isaiah gave a simple nod. Appreciate it. Roland didn't even acknowledge Derek, who now stood near the center of the lobby trying to blend into the wallpaper. But Monique turned to him with the steadiness of someone who had already reviewed the evidence. We've seen the live branch footage, she said. There's video. There's audio. And it's very clear. Derek started to protest. I was just doing my job. You're not being terminated because he's the president, Monique interrupted, voice sharp. You're being terminated because you ignored procedure, disrespected a client, and created a hostile atmosphere, for him and for your team. The silence that followed wasn't stunned. It was affirming, as if the staff had waited too long to hear those words spoken aloud. Isaiah stepped forward, not as the victim of this moment, but as its teacher. I could have fired you the moment I identified myself, he said, eyes steady on Derek. But I wanted you to understand why it matters. He gestured around the room. These people, your team, your customers, they didn't know who I was. But they watched. They saw how you treated someone you didn't think was important. He paused. And that kind of stain doesn't just fade. It spreads. Derek's posture sagged. His jaw clenched like a child about to argue, but he had no defense. Monique motioned gently toward the hallway. Derek walked off without a word. When the office door shut behind him, the stillness didn't fade, it deepened. The customers whispered, some slowly gathering their belongings. Others stayed, rooted in a moment they couldn't quite name, but knew they'd remember. Isaiah turned back to the staff. I'll speak to the team in 5 minutes, he said softly. Please finish with your customers. And then he walked away, settling in a chair at the far end of the branch, the same chair he'd once sat in during his first visit to a branch as regional director, back when a young manager had politely asked if he was lost. He hadn't been lost that day. He wasn't lost now, but he was about to help others find their way back to something they'd forgotten. Respect wasn't earned by title. It was revealed when no one was watching. 5 minutes passed like 30. The branch was quiet, but not empty of sound, just stripped of pretense. Customers finished their transactions and left in slow waves, heads turning back once or twice before pushing open the door. The staff gathered near the center of the lobby, unsure if they were supposed to stand or sit, speak or stay silent. When Isaiah stood, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't carry a script or pull out a laptop. He just walked forward, steady and grounded, and stood before the people who had just witnessed a lesson in leadership, delivered without shouting, without spectacle. I know this morning was unexpected, he began, his tone measured, but I want to explain something, not just about what happened, but why it can't happen again. The room listened, not with fear, but with attention, real attention. I've worked at this bank for over 30 years, Isaiah said. Started at the very bottom. Filing cabinets, paper trails, fax machines. I've been ignored in hallways. I've been questioned in meetings where I was the only one with a plan. So when I came in this morning, I didn't want to be treated like the president of the company. He looked at Madison, then at Andre. I wanted to be treated like anyone else, because that's the true measure of who we are. There was no dramatization in his voice, no theatrical pause. Just truth, unfiltered and unpolished. What I witnessed wasn't just a bad judgment call. It was a moment where someone in power chose assumption over inquiry. And worse, the rest of us froze. Andre looked down. Madison's lip trembled. Isaiah softened. That's human. I get it. But now you've seen what silence allows, and hopefully, you've also seen what standing up can create. A few nods, a few glances exchanged. Even Dennis, the assistant manager who'd stood silent through the entire confrontation, straightened his shoulders. We talk a lot about leadership, Isaiah continued. And too often, it sounds like titles at meetings. But real leadership, is speaking up when something's wrong. It's choosing courage over comfort. And yes, sometimes it means doing the hard thing in front of everyone. He paused, then added, Derek won't be returning. That wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. Because one unchecked moment like today becomes normal. And when normal is wrong, it becomes policy. He glanced at the room, his expression softening. I'll be visiting other branches in the coming months. Not to test anyone, to listen, to learn. And yes, he smiled slightly, maybe not in a suit. A few quiet chuckles. The tension loosened. Isaiah stepped back. But if you ever find yourself wondering how to treat someone, ask yourself this. Would I speak to them the same way if I knew they could walk into a boardroom tomorrow and decide my future? If the answer is no, then it's not the right way to treat them. At all. There were no applause, no corporate slogans, just a still moment, a heavy silence that now felt peaceful. Isaiah nodded, offered a quiet thanks, and walked out. No security escort, no entourage, just a man who reminded them. Leadership isn't about who's watching, it's about how you act when you believe no one is.